Welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm so glad you joined me today. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm Amanda. Let's see. If you are watching on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, please hitting the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more or see more. And if you are listening on the podcast, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down to the bottom and rating my podcast, I'd appreciate it. Today I wanted to continue a little with a little more from last week on narcissism and narcissistic parents, mothers specifically in my case. It was kind of interesting. Last week I talked about induced conversation and how I was proud of myself for not giving in to my mother's induced conversation. And I think literally the day after, a day or two after I made that video, my mother called me because my stepdad fractured his hip, and she was letting me know. And so, dang it, I did have to talk to her. And then I did go. I took my kids over to the hospital to see him. He's doing well. I'm glad, that I went and saw him. Although, there's hurt feelings there from things in the past, I'm just not going to be the kind of person to completely just hold a grudge. I am working on setting healthy boundaries in place, but, someone gets injured and goes to the hospital, especially with hips being involved, that can be dangerous at their age. And so I wasn't not going to go visit him in the hospital. So we actually went and saw him twice, and he's doing good and recovering. I will say that my mom did manage to get a reaction out of me. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, because it just means that I'm a sensitive, sympathetic person. But when she called, and she was letting me know she was following an ambulance because my stepdad was in the ambulance, she was like up here. She was at level 20. So my mind is immediately going to something really horrible happened, like heart attack, stroke, something really, really horrible. And because of the level she was at, I should have known better, but it was just in a split-second reaction. And then as soon as she got the reaction out of me, she brought it back down to the appropriate level it was, with that he had fallen the day before. So he didn't even go to the hospital right away. He had fallen the day before, but was in so much pain that and couldn't walk himself to the car. So they had to call an ambulance. So I was a little annoyed with that she was able to get a reaction out of me, but given the state that she was in, although I should have known, but given the state she was in, I had a normal reaction to that. So yeah, she did get to communicate with me. Dang it. But yeah, I finally finished The Human Magnet Syndrome. It is a very good book. If you have had any kind of interaction with a narcissist, or he even talks about sociopaths, psychopaths, if you've had any kind of interaction with anyone like that in your life, I recommend this book. It's really, really good. I have so many things underlined. I have like whole sections marked because the whole thing just applied to me. I had watched one of his videos, like I said last week. I'd watched one of his videos, and then it reminded me that I even had this book. Like I said, I bought it when I first was trying to just process the fact that I was raised by a narcissist. it took me 40 something years to realize that. And so I got this book when I first found that out, but was too overwhelmed to really read it. And now I went back and I think I'm emotionally and mentally prepared to figure all of this out. I was just, when it first happened, I was thrown first into extreme anger and a lot of confusion. Just because when you're raised by a narcissist and you're gaslit your entire life, your whole perception of who you are is distorted. They distort it to make you fit into what they want. If you are the child that is going to give them the supply and be what everybody usually terms golden child. I don't always necessarily like that term. But it is kind of how they treat you. My mom would always, often, there's several times I remember her taking me aside and telling me that I was her favorite. And that was with 4 daughters. And then I don't remember if she ever said it after my brothers were born. She kind of gave up on us girls. We were from her first husband, and so she kind of was like replaced us with my 2 brothers. But I think we were like reminded her, as in a narcissist mindset, we reminded her of her mess ups and her mistakes and probably things she's ashamed of, and so she just kind of let us fall to the wayside. But I can't remember where I was going with that. Sorry. I was just very angry, very confused. I've had to realize that the majority of what I thought I knew about my childhood, what I thought I knew about relationships within my family, that all of that was not true or very distorted and twisted. And it was really hard for me to wrap my head around that. And I've just been kind of trying to weed through what's true and what isn't ever since then. And it's really hard. And for a long time, I just got very overwhelmed by that. And just kind of let the anger and confusion just kind of take over for a while. I think those are natural feelings, I think, when you figure out, when you find out something like that, something that devastating to you. And so I'm not, hard on myself about that, but I'm glad I'm past that. And I think now I can be a little more objective and rational and just look at what happened and, just look at it a little more clearly. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that's what this book's going to help me do. I found another book, and no offense to anyone that does agree with this guy and believe in this stuff wholeheartely. I'm not judging. I'm just saying I don't personally go for all of it, but it's called Healing Your Lost Inner Child. And I'm wanting to use it, I do think it'll help me, because I do have, I used to pride myself on having a really good memory of my childhood. I kind of look back now and I think, well, either I was mistaken, or since finding out that most of it was a lie, my brain just kind of shut off access to it. I can't really remember a lot of my childhood, except for experiences in school. But home life kind of things, I can't remember a lot of that. And so I'm hoping that that book will help me, because it's supposed to help you kind of work through and process some of figuring out where the trauma started, where your triggers are, and things like that, and helping you kind of process it and get through it. And that I do need. It's the part I don't agree with is the whole picturing yourself as a kid and that person's still in there and hugging them and getting them to feel safe. Like, I don't necessarily believe that part of it. But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to get what I can out of the book and try and move forward, because I have realized there's a lot of things that I tolerate, a lot of things that I do, a lot of anxiety that I have that comes from all of that happened in my childhood. And I want to try and reprogram my thinking to where I am not responsible for everyone else. I'm not responsible for their choices. I'm not responsible for everything that goes on around me. I am responsible for me and my actions. My children, to a certain degree, they're their own people. They're going to make their own choices too. But as a parent, I'll be a little responsible for that. But I just need to figure out a way to think in a healthy manner and not the way that my mind had to process things just to get me to survive situations and not get in trouble all the time. And when you're the golden child, and this guy says, Ross Rosenberg also says, when you're the golden child, it typically leads to becoming, some people call it codependent. He renamed it self-love deficient. I don't particularly care for either one of those terms, but you become the person that morphs into what the narcissist wants you to be. I have so many memories of feeling like I had to fake how I was feeling. I couldn't really let anyone know what I was actually feeling. If I was angry about something, I had to suck it up, swallow it, and move on, because otherwise I was going to make my mother angry. And while I don't have any memories of what that actually would have done, I knew I didn't want it to happen. And so I avoided that at all costs. And so I would always be positive for her, affirm whatever it was she was saying she wanted at the time, even though a lot of times she would go back and forth. One of the things that used to absolutely drive me nuts before I realized what was going on, when she would call me all the time, was that one day, and this goes back once she started really getting close to God, and trust me, I love God and I am close to God. I'm not putting that part down. I'm just saying that with her narcissism, and then that happened, it put a whole other layer on with the narcissism. But she would call me one day and be like, God told me this, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to happen, and, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, and I would encourage her and be positive about it with her, and whether I thought it was crazy or not, and go along with it. And then literally the next day or two, she would call and have the opposite viewpoint from what she had just told me, and that God had told her that too. And I'm like, stuff isn't adding up. And it was just little things like that, that finally opened my eyes to that. But anyway, with reading this book, it helped me to kind of see why I am the way I am. People pleasing. I don't stick up for myself a lot. I've learned I am a little better at that, at least with certain people, but still not great at it. I tend to work my entire life around whatever is convenient for other people versus just saying, nope, sorry, I can't make it to that because I have this going on. I would feel guilty about that. I am doing better. Today, I had to say no to something. One of the 4-H club's meetings, I wasn't going to be able to make supper and have it hot and ready for my husband when he got home and get to church tonight if we went to that club meeting. And so I had to just say no, that we weren't going to be able to make it. Still tiny bit of guilt there, but I'm working on that. That's just something I'm going to have to work on. But anyway, this book and then the other one that I had just started reading, I think are going to help me with that. I wanted to read a little bit. When I picked this book back up, I just kind of flipped through it and I landed on page 226, which is really towards the end. And the little title of the section kind of caught my attention. I read that. I was crying by the time I was through reading it. And then that's when I realized I need to go back and just read the whole book. And now I have. I will probably be referring back to it a lot because I actually read it pretty fast for something this heavy. And my mom definitely had this. Her looks are everything to her. Like, she is very wrapped up in her looks. Always has been. You had to think she was the most beautiful person around. And if she thought you didn't, it wasn't good. There was a girl one time that was friends with one of my sisters, not even really friends, kind of frenemies with my sister, one of my sisters, and she had said something about my mom being cute. This was a little kid. She was probably like 13, 14 at the time, maybe, if that, and said my mom was cute. My mom took such offense to that. She talked about that for years and years and years, that this kid called her cute, and she took offense at that. So anyway, the title of the section was The Fake Photo on the Mirror Trick. And so he says, your narcissist's perception of you has always been skewed to their liking, or even worse, to their need. Let's see. And then a little bit further down, it is the sad truth that the pathetic and unlovable person in the mirror who you have always identified with was never even you. The image you have mistakenly and understandably believed was the real you had been doctored to reflect only the narcissist's implanted narrative. The person you always hoped you were actually exists. The reflection you see, which you regularly look at with disgust, disappointment, and shame, is not and never was you. In fact, it isn't even a real reflection at all. The gaslighter's insatiable need to be the most beautiful person in your world, yes, has resulted in their calculated decision to commandeer your mirrors. And that hit me so hard. So hard. Growing up, she had to be the most beautiful. And yes, she told me and my sisters that we were beautiful and stuff too. But she was obsessed. She wouldn't even take her makeup off in front of my dad. And they were married for 18 years. She would wake up early to put it back on. Like, she was just obsessed. She still goes to Walmart in heels because she hardly ever leaves the house. So when she does, she dresses up. It's a bit excessive. But growing up with that was just hard. Anyway, that resonated with me, and so it took me on a journey with this book. And I didn't really want to identify with the codependent. And even he says that's why he renamed it Self-Love Deficient, which I still don't like. I love myself to a certain degree. I understand where he's coming from, because you don't love yourself as much as you like being accepted by the narcissist, or being loved by others, because you set yourself aside. You aren't a priority to yourself, especially as a child. Wasn't. All right, so becoming the trophy child. I thought it was very interesting because he does talk about a couple of the different kids and how they turn out. And he said typically the trophy child or the golden child will become a self-love deficient or codependent adult. And typically the scapegoat will actually have narcissistic tendencies, which, that's sad. I think that's sad. The person that's actually beat down by the narcissist has to turn in, not has to, but typically ends up turning into a narcissist, or at least having a lot of their tendencies. I think that made me really sad. And he talks a lot about family history. He can trace his back to his great-grandparents. I mentioned last time, I believe my mom's mom was a narcissist also. And if my mom was her scapegoat, which I believe she was, because I think my uncle was the golden child, and or at least to hear my mom tell it, so probably. So mom was probably the scapegoat, and then that made her a narcissist. Not to take any of her, like, she should still take ownership for some of her things. She claims to be a preacher, and yet she still lies constantly. I mean, you can't tell me she doesn't know what she's doing on some level. But about being the trophy child, he says, by molding yourself into their pleasing or trophy child, you might have found a way to shield yourself from a worse childhood fate, but it would come at an unimaginable cost. Although your trophy status might save you from the darker and more harmful side of your narcissistic parent, it would have also deprived you of emotional freedom, safety, and future positive adult mental health. Sadly, relaxing and enjoying the wonders of childhood would never be yours. And that was very true. Very true. I still, to this day, don't... it's very hard for me. Everyone's like, be in the moment and be present in the moment and enjoy the moment. It's very hard for me to do that because in the back of my mind, I'm wondering what's going to go wrong, what's going to mess up. I want to get to the part where he describes, patterns and characteristics of, I hate saying codependent because I'm a very independent person. I don't like that. Let's see. He had codependent categories. Let's try to see which one I resonated with the most. Probably a passive codependent. It says are more fearful and avoidant of conflict. That's very much me. I avoid conflict at all costs, which is something that I do want to work on. I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. It makes my stomach hurt. My stomach hurting is always what happens when anything goes wrong. Let's see. I didn't identify with absolutely every characteristic that was on here, so I'll just kind of hit the ones that I identified with the most. So it says you minimize, alter, or deny how you truly feel. Yes. Let's see. Have difficulty making decisions. Very much. I mean, becoming a mother has kind of forced me to deal with that a little bit, but I still have a very hard time, a second guess, absolutely every decision that I make. I judge everything I think, say, or do harshly as never good enough. Yes. I'm embarrassed to receive recognition, praise, or gifts. Yes. I do not ask others to meet my needs or desires. Yes. I do not ask for help. Unless it's... Now with my kids, I feel a little more comfortable. because they're my kids and we're here all day. But I typically, even when I'm going to be gone from my job at church, I hate having to ask the lady that covers for me. I hate having to ask her that. I hate not being able to do what I see as my responsibilities myself. I hate that. I value others' approval of my thinking, feelings, and behavior over my own. Yes. I compromise my own values and integrity to avoid rejection or anger from others. Yes, to a degree. I've always been fairly, this is right, this is wrong. And if I know something is really wrong, I won't give in to that. I will stand up for what I believe is right if it's something I feel strongly about. But if it's not that big of a deal, then I will compromise it just to avoid confrontation. I'm very sensitive to how others are feeling and feel the same. Yes, I can, and this is something he talks about later in the book, I can sense people's emotions, tones, any change in like just the atmosphere with somebody's personality and their emotions. I pick up on that. Now, sometimes I think it's geared towards me and it isn't, but I believe that came from because I had to do that in order to not get in trouble, in order to perceive something was coming and try to avoid it. And so now, and it drives me nuts because I'm trying not to make it my problem anymore, but I still do struggle with that because I do notice, any little change in facial expressions because that's what my mother would do. And I had to pay attention to that. I'm extremely loyal, remaining in harmful situations too long, as with my mom. And harmful, not necessarily physically harmful, but harmful as in not really benefiting me. Yes, I've stayed in friendships too long, where it took me a little too long to realize that it was a one-sided thing and to get out of it. I value others' opinions and feelings more than my own, and am afraid to express differing opinions and feelings of my own. Yes. I will either smile and nod when someone says something, even if I don't agree, or just kind of keep my mouth shut. But I typically will not speak up unless, again, it's something really, really serious and important to me. I put aside my own interests and hobbies to do what others want. I have done that all my life. I attempt to convince others of what they should think and how they truly feel. Yes, I do that. Because I love them and I don't want to think that they're actually thinking and feeling that wrongly, and what I've believed to be wrong. And so I will try to correct that in them. I freely offer others advice and directions without being asked. Yes, I do that. I judge harshly what others think, say, or do. A lot of times I do. But I judge my own even harsher. I avoid emotional, physical, or sexual intimacy as a means of maintaining distance. I mean, I'm married, so I don't do the sexual intimacy one, but avoid emotional or physical intimacy as a means of maintaining distance. Yes. I will shut my emotions off. If I feel like I'm threatened, I will kind of shut down. I use indirect and evasive communication to avoid conflict or confrontation. Absolutely. 100%. I suppress my feelings or needs to avoid feeling vulnerable. Yes. I don't want others to know that I need anything from them. And That's sad, but that's just kind of the way it is. I believe displays of emotion are a sign of weakness. Yes, so I try not to do that unless I absolutely can't help it. Self-worth, self-esteem depends on being needed and having few needs. Yes, especially the having few needs part. Excessively complies with suggestions, requests, or inappropriate orders. Yeah, I have done that. Preoccupied with the problems, struggles, and needs of others while neglecting their own. Yes. In an attempt to be everything to everybody, loses ability to take care of their own needs. I have done that. Champions and avidly supports the needs, goals, and dreams of others while ignoring and devaluing their own. Yes. Again, because I learned that I had to, because as soon as I spoke up and said there was something I had a dream about or I wanted to do, my mother would make it seem small or stupid, or she would like one-up me or something. So I learned very quickly not to really talk about that. Yeah, and I still don't, like, even this podcast. Nobody that I know personally, except for my husband and my kids, even know that I have this. So, I'm just not, I'm hoping that through all of this, I can have the, the courage and, actually do that. But right now, nobody I know personally knows about this. And I would probably be mortified if I knew that anyone besides my husband or kids even saw or heard this. Adept at solving the problems of others while not being able or motivated to solve their own. Yes. Again, back to the indecisive. I don't know what to do typically. That's why I read a lot. I typically don't know what to do in my own situations. But I'm pretty good at giving advice to others. Perpetually seeks to please people, always looking to help or lend a hand. Yes, I'm not as good at that as I used to be. I think being tired all the time with Hashimoto's kind of toned that down just a little bit. But yes, people please, absolutely. Struggles at declining a request for help, may feel guilty or needy. Yes, if someone asks if I need help, I am more than likely going to say no and struggle to do it myself. Overcommits in many important relationships. Yep. Creates excessive, impossible work and personal schedule. A lot of times, I'm working on that. I'm doing better about that. But yes. Feels unable to ask for what they want or need. Absolutely. Feels selfish or needy when asking for help. Yes, I will feel very, very guilty. Has difficulty identifying and communicating emotions. Yes. Willingly conforms to unrealistic and unreasonable relationship expectations. Yes. I want to be what they think I need to be, what they want me to be, in any relationship, because that's just how I was programmed to be. Again, this goes back to, I don't really, because I had to adapt to what she wanted me to be, and I had to adapt and mold myself into that for so long that I don't really know what part of my personality is really me and what is something she shaped, if that makes sense. And I'm really, really, really trying to sift through that, because I am so angry at the fact that I was molded like that, or molded myself as a child into that I don't want any part of that anymore. I want to be who God originally created me to be, and not who she molded me into. If you can make sense of that. If you grew up with a narcissist, you would know exactly what I mean, but if you didn't, then that might be confusing. Fears and avoids disagreements and conflict. Yes, some of these are kind of repetitive, but yes. Feels powerless to protect themselves from harm, easily manipulated and exploited by self-serving individuals. Yes. Does not set firm boundaries or consequences when mistreated and or abused. Yes. Very bad at that. I don't know how to stick up for myself. Aside from just, words. Otherwise, I don't know. He goes into a lot about gaslighting. That, I think, is something that's so damaging. It is so damaging to be gaslit. And I hate it. And I'm easier to spot it now, but it just makes me so angry when it happens now that it's hard. But again, and this is something I also need to learn, what do you do when someone is gaslighting you? Because it's what they're saying happened versus what you say happened. And unless you just stick cameras up everywhere and record every minute of your life, how do you prove that the way you remember it is accurate? And how do you stand up to a gaslighter? I think part of the solution to that, Mr. Rosenberg goes into what he calls his, I mentioned it last time, I think, observe, don't absorb technique. So you just don't even get in the wrestling ring, he calls it. You just don't even join the fight. Just say, this is what I believe happened. This is how I think I remember it happening. And, exit. Don't join in and argue. But in some situations, that's really difficult. Let's see. He talked about the different types of narcissistic parents. The one, I believe, my mother... the good parent narrative. I believe my mom was a combination of two of them. The opposite parent, and this person, because they were also raised by a narcissist, and they just decide, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what my parent did, and so my kids will not, turn out, not have to go through what I went through. When that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, but I do remember my mom saying that often. She was like, I just remember what my mom would do, and I'm going to do the opposite. And that isn't always realistic or logical, is what he was saying. And the other one that she definitely was someone finally needs me. And he said, pathological narcissists who are conscious of their very low self-esteem and loneliness daydream about the happiness a child will bring them. My mom always, and I used to not stop and think, it always hit me funny, but I never realized until later why it hit me funny. But she always would say she couldn't wait to have children, to have someone that loved her. Not have someone for her to show love to. It was always about her and us loving her. And she would say it in such a way like it was such a good thing that as a kid I was always like, huh, okay, that's sweet. And then as an adult I was like, that's twisted. No. You want a child to, because you love your spouse, you want to see the two of you combine together and give love to the child, not so the child can love you and fulfill something missing in you. That's while they do that. That isn't why you have kids, and it kind of explains why she had so many kids. Because at the end of that, it says, when the child attempts to individuate from the parent, the house of cards comes tumbling down. That's when the narcissist's core shame reemerges. This is also the type of narrative that is responsible for the extremely toxic nature of an overly enmeshed parent-child relationship. I do believe I was a little bit too enmeshed with her at times. But my youngest brother is definitely in that position right now, and I pray for him often because it's not good for him. He's mid 20s, and it's not good. But I can kind of see that the way, because my mom always really loved the baby phase, and there was something he had in here. Erickson's 8 stages of psychological development, and where my issues come in is from between 18 months to 3 years. And that is when a kid starts kind of pulling away, becoming an individual, and, they learn to talk, they learn to talk back, usually, and all of those things. And so he has, what are they called? Attachment experiences, and then the time period. So trust versus mistrust is from birth to about 12 to 18 months. I do have some issues with that, not quite as much as the 2 that I highlighted, but autonomy versus shame and doubt. Being your own person versus having doubt about everything you do, which is a huge one of mine, and that's the 18 months to 3 years. And my first sister was born when I was 3 years old, so I'm guessing some point in there, I started probably trying to be my own individual. She didn't like that. I wasn't as needy, and that's when she was ready to have another kid, I think. Initiative versus guilt from 3 to 6 years, and I struggle with guilt all the time. I feel guilty for just about everything, and not even just stuff I do. Anyone around me, anyone connected with me, if they do something wrong, I will feel guilty for it. I will feel responsible for it. I'll feel like I have to stick up for that person, or kind of explain away. I am very connected to feeling guilty about everything. And then there's more up until when you're older. So I believe that whatever started happening sometime after I was 18 months old until I was about 6 years old. And that's when I started going to school, and that was a whole other set of issues. But my mom already had 2 other kids by then, and so she probably kind of just let go of me a little bit. So I won't go further into it. I might talk on this next week. I am not sure. There's also some other DNA stuff I want to talk about too soon, so we'll see. But I've just found this very interesting, and I know when I started the podcast and I did get to start talking about narcissism and having to deal with all of this, it's been sort of like therapy for me. So I hope that if you're watching or listening to that, you can get something out of it too. But it is very therapeutic for me to get to talk about it. I don't really get to talk about it with people in my life much, because nobody wants to hear about it. So I don't really get to process it with talking to anybody much. So this is just therapeutic for me, and kind of just a way for me to verbally process what I'm learning and dealing with. And I hope that it helps somebody out there too, or at least helps you, get a hold of the books that can get you started on your journey to handle things better and do better too. Because I don't want to just do this for myself. I would like to help some other people along the way. It just took me so long to even see that I was in that mess, and now I am just ready to be who I was created to be and react and behave and process things in a healthy way. It isn't healthy to feel guilty about everyone else's actions. It isn't healthy to be guilty about every decision and choice you make. It isn't healthy to let others walk all over you all the time. It's not healthy. It's not a fun way to live at all. And I'm trying to learn and do better. So thanks for joining me on that journey. I hope you come back next week. I may be talking a little more about what I learned. I'll have read, if not all of, I'll have read a lot of the Healing Your Lost Inner Child book. And so I might have some more insights from what that author said. I won't go into the, hugging yourself part of it, but I'm hoping that there's things in there that can help me one, kind of remember and figure out where some of these things started, and then get my thinking lined up to where it needs to be in a healthy direction and not the messed up direction that it is at the moment. So yeah, I hope you join me again. Don't forget to hit like if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. And if you're listening on the podcast, scroll down and rate the podcast for me, please. I'd appreciate it. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for joining me today on Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. Come back next week and I'll have another episode. Bye.